Okay. So now we're recording. Now it's really official.
Cool.
So, yeah, just I guess to begin with all this, obviously I don't think anything happens by accident. I was supposed to put this out today so that we could all get together and just really have a chance, really, for community. I think, we're all trying to, really form deep connections with our soul tribes, whoever, is really going to be there for our souls, for the greatest evolution for ourselves, but also to really support us on core levels, deeply within our hearts. And I mean, that's one thing I know for sure, is that, and one of the purposes of this is, we really went through a heart loss when Judith, transitioned out. And so many people have, really appreciated her, for so many years, and she's done so much for all of us, shifting out, old crap, taking calls and, can you clear this and do this? And, I certainly miss her. Every time I talk to Karen, her daughter, and Colleen, at different times, it's just, it's really hard on them, of course, as kids, but, it's just, it really was interesting that she left when she did, because, she had done so much for preparing, I think, for this point of the new earth, really where we can step into, to really know our power. And that's a hard thing to do. Obviously I'm having to do it because, I've created this call. Well, Spirit created the call. I didn't. I made the, text messages and what have you. But, really, all of this is just, whatever is happening through us is just Spirit moving through us at its highest potentiality. And we don't think about that we're the miracle in the moment when we're just living our lives and, making food or whatever else. But all of that leads to something else, because it's sustaining us for the next moment when Spirit will put us in the path of someone else to make a big difference. And it can be small choice points. Someone may need help with something, just minuscule little things. There's nothing lost, on the soul progression of each of us. And yet, I also know that we're going into some places where, depending on the level, we've been able to clear and do, we're really going to create some amazing things. I don't know if y'all have listened much or heard of Pam Gregory. She's an astrologer in the United Kingdom, and so she lives in England. She's in her 70s, I guess. But she's really started putting out, I guess for the last year, some amazing videos. You can find her on YouTube, just Pam Gregory. And she speaks in such a way where, it really is activating people's DNA, and she takes people into just vast ways of observing things that you just didn't think about before, and yet it's still grounded. She does interviews with people, she calls it, the grassroots stuff, whether you're either changing the way we do food production, the way you interact in, your life and the world. She really is doing amazing things with it, and she explains the astrology from a very advanced place. Rick Levine's another one, Ann Ortley, of course. The ones I've sent y'all for years. They're all really just saying the same thing. Obviously, there's challenging aspects that wake us up too, but so one of the things I thought with this, I definitely don't want to, lock it into any type of form. Jude had her way of, that we would go and do, and we would open things up. That's what I would like to really know, is this really have something immersive where, to the extent that each one of you, want to be participative. I want to hear really where we're all at, because I think we have so much to learn from each other and each other's soul journeys with what's happening to us right now. So anybody want to open up on what's clearing out of your life, or like a new beginning you're seeing, either job changes, moves, anybody moving? How's this energy affecting your lives in form?
Well, I can... Go ahead.
I was going to say,
for me, the naps are amazing. Jonathan, you mentioned taking a nap and getting in the car and going somewhere and trying to figure out where it is I'm going. I feel as if I'm on a different planet. So I didn't know if I was going into early dementia or if it's the shift. So I'm glad to hear that we're relatively normal.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things, I mean, after working with Jude for so long and working with her with clients and things, you know, people would have a perspective of, oh, something's wrong with me. And there's really not. A lot of times when we go into something that catches us, it's almost like the fight-flight response, and it can be a quick response, or it can be something that just kind of floats in and out, but you take notice of it. And some people, you know, they'll find a stuck place, you know, and then we're not sure what to do. And so it's like you just sit in that space of what not to do and go meet that space. That's one of, you know, biggest teachings through, you know, all this time, and it really is true. It's like, how do you stay in the moment of whatever doesn't feel good? And when you're doing that, it's like you go meet that. And when you meet it, you get to give it away. She's always said you can't give away something you don't own. And so it's why, you know, when she takes clients into that deep, you know, the primal work. I remember when I first started working with her those first 3 years, I'd be at her house in Abita, and she'd be like, okay, go down here. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And she just lead me into my stomach because I was emotionally just like locked down. I was like, I ain't having any of that. And it took forever. Like, my God, we're never going to get you in here. But I mean, by the time we started doing it, I remember just, I couldn't even breathe. I thought I was just going to die. She's like, stay in this. And I'm like, okay, you know, coughing and hacking. And sometimes I'd be like just laughing beyond anything. And she said, that's a fear response. And she said, just go into this. And so I did. And that's really what we're doing right now is allowing the core residue to fall away. Because there's something about going into pristine awareness. And Spirit has had deep conversations with me about what that looks like. Most of us don't have a frame of reference for it because everything in our life is an accumulation of our ancestral and genetic inheritance. You know, so it's like we're always having to meet ourselves at some point along the soul evolution. And there's also the entanglement. I was having this conversation with, you know, Jude's friend Light Song that she worked with for, they've been knowing each other for 30 years. I mean, Light Song's brilliant too. And we caught up last week, I guess a couple of weeks ago for a couple hours. And, you know, we were just talking about what our perceptions are of the field and how things have shifted. And I told her, you know, Spirit has really just taken me into how the morphogenetic field is exponentially changing beyond anything we've ever known before. I mean, when Rupert Sheldrake wrote about the morphogenetic field, I mean, this has been several, you know, decades ago, you know, everybody was wondering about what does that look like? And it's like, how does the field change in response to us? And it's always been true, though, that everything out there has to reflect who we are as a frequency. Everything's a frequency. So if there's something that needs to be cleared, you know, you either consciously go find it, or you can also ask the all that is, Mother, Father, God, whatever you perceive that to be, can you assist me in clearing this? And a lot of times our souls release those things during the sleep. Like when you're talking about being just totally knocked out, Joyce, it's like we're releasing so much gracefully in that allowance. And a lot of people are so busy they won't allow themselves to sleep. That was a long thing to answer to your sleep, but it's funny when I start talking about this stuff, it's like I just feel like I get out of the way and Spirit just says whatever needs to be said for the greatest amount of people that's there. So I hope this stuff is working for you guys because, I mean, I've never hosted this by myself. So it's kind of like,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I don't guess I know what I'm doing, but I guess I do know what I'm doing. But I don't. but it's not a me. It's not a personal me. It's kind of like when you get out of the way. Jude always said this, it's like the core soul group will hear whatever they need to hear and get from it. And there's never any mistakes in the universe. And I think that's the biggest thing that we have to know. And we just own it. And we can be grateful for that moment we're in it. And, so I hope that helps. Please give me feedback on any of this stuff. I mean, if there's something you want to...
about sleep. Yeah, we're just talking about sleep, and I've been low in energy for days.
Carter?
Who's this?
I
Carter?
Hey,
Carter. Yes, I mean, it's sleep is one of the biggest things in how we can allow this energy just to move through. And there's something about just satiating in our own space. There's something about resting and collapse. And that's one thing Judith did over all these years. The more she would release and allow herself to collapse into the infinite, the more that the infinite could work through her, shifting cells, structures, everything else. And I mean, I've had a lot of conversations since Judith passed away, and a lot of people would ask me, well, why did she have to manifest, the cancer the way she did in the form? Because it's a disease pattern, and it really kind of is not necessarily, what she assists with teaching us in, because, she's teaching from wholeness and transmuting disease patterns. And when the way that Spirit has explained this to me, and Jude and I over the years, and also Light Song, we've talked about it. Connie Stewart, we've talked about it a good bit too. There's something with the accumulation of a whole soul progression. And of course, she was almost 85 when she passed away and started the journey at 33 years old. But each time she went through these things, she would always say, "Oh, there's another initiation, or there's another this," and it would take her into additional levels and layers of cosmic awareness, and yet there was still phenomena that can happen to the body. It's like she was always in the infinite. She was in the infinite all the way to the very end. She always felt like she was in a place of transcendence. She felt like she was in a place of, she's releasing the body. And she really honestly felt like she was going to shift that body. We would talk about this, and she would ask me, "Is there any place? What's left? What have I not seen? What's left? It's like, what am I missing?" And there was still such levels of surrender that were even available to go through. And the one thing when I started really diving into ascended beings, people have been on the planet that go through these awakeness processes, whether it's Adyashanti, Krishnamurti, Yogananda, all of those people still went through physical death. So even though we have a lot of people that are teaching, we are going through epigenetics. You've got Bruce Lipton, you've got Greg Braden. Just tons of people are really still coming up with how the science is meeting us as we go through spiritual evolution. And I do think that's all true. At the same time, we don't have a perception of awareness of how deep the fall from grace was for humanity. And that's one thing Jude really talked about with me a lot, was when she would go in and work with the vastness of the human collective soul in assisting in clearing patterning and things, because we were never supposed to play this dark. And all of the people that are out there right now that are, they're pushing the, agendas to kill this off or do this. There's so many distorted thought forms and miscreated patterns that are playing out right now. And so it takes a lot for everyone to clear that out, because it really is in the DNA. We're really, reactivating all the places in our DNA where we just didn't think that either we weren't good enough or we couldn't we could not perceive above the limitations that were placed on us when we came in. At the same time, I do think that there are the 144,000 souls that have probably activated the whole light grid on the planet. I know we're going into an ascension with it. I think there's going to be growing pains with it. One thing I'll address with these eclipses, a lot of people get on and they're worried about the Earth changes. And this one thing, Pam Gregory talks about Manwë and Varda and Haumea. You've got some of these the planetoid, dwarf planets that are way out there, and she explains how, like, Haumea birthed, like the Hawaiian Islands, and there's land coming out like in the Pacific Ocean, and I mean that's on mainstream news if you go find it. It's like all these changes are leading to whatever the new Earth is going to look like. I mean, some people have talked about that these eclipses crisscrossing the United States will be the New Madrid fault. Are we going to have an earthquake at the fault? I mean, it's been 200 years. Like, who knows? I don't focus on those things necessarily as much as I do staying in my own heart. It's like, what am I creating? And so that's kind of what I'm interested, like with you guys, is hearing what you're creating. And I think that's going to be really helpful for all of us, is to discuss how we're creating in the new. And if you've got questions, with other people, maybe, that can help actuate something with you, or all of us. I mean, me. As far as I'm concerned, we're all here teachers, and we're all students. We're always that as long as we're on the planet. So, yeah, I mean, anybody else have something to share?
I have a housekeeping question. Is star 6 how I mute myself?
Yes, you can do it individually. If I do it as the host, it mutes all of you. But you should be able to star 6, and it would just take care of you, I think. I just mute on my iPhone with my mute thing. I mean, most cell phones have a place where you can mute yourself that way. I don't know if star 6 works for y'all individually or not. I never did it when I was student because I just used my own mute button. I mean, you can try it and talk to us. If we don't hear you, then I guess it works, and you can let us know. But I'm trying to keep it open. Yeah.
The other thing that's going on for me is I have moments of incredible clarity.
Yeah.
And that's real. It's I don't even know how to say it, because things are so clear that I'm not used to it being that clear.
Yep.
So I just, with all the chaos going on, for me, I have those incredible moments of clarity, and I just wanted to share that.
Absolutely, and honestly, that's really where we're going. A lot of people with the astrology talk about the alignments, especially with Pluto. But the way everything's lined up, I also think it's Black Moon Lilith. It's taking us into an awakening, our sentient knowing, the omnipotence, the omnipresence, all those things. It's like there's that Trinity that's lining up, and if we're really out of the way, Spirit's speaking to us. It's your higher self, just coming into contact, and of course you, Bob, that because we talk so much, there was at the end of Jude's stuff, and it's like we talk forever. It's like the soul just wants to know these things. We talk, you'd have questions, we just went back and forth. There was so much that comes forth in the interaction of a moment, and especially in one-on-one conversations. Last night, my neighbor behind me, she moved here a few years from Wisconsin, and it's like I've been having conversations with her and some of her friends, and the conversation just goes all sorts of places. I have no agenda where the conversations go, but by the time we're done, it's that reciprocity. The soul is curious. The soul wants to know, and you'll say something that'll wake me up, or there'll be some moment of clarity that I get just because of something you said. And it could be something you don't even think about. And that really is, I think, the beauty of immediacy. And every time that we are there for each other, it's just immediacy. It's just waking each other up. And it's really what we came here to do. And that's really the teaching Jude always gave us. And that's one of the things I really wanted to do, was just to hear more about where you guys were, because we're just waking each other up. Even if you feel you're totally asleep.
It was explained to me waking up was like being at a slumber party. Everybody wakes up at a different time.
That's correct. It really is true.
Mhm.
Mhm. One thing that's really true, though, these eclipses are changing us energetically, so that it's almost going to be like we're just going to wake up one day and be like, oh my gosh. We really are seeing the world in a completely different way. And by the time the eclipse series is over, I think we're going to be totally unrecognizable. I mean, I don't even have any frame of reference to who I was last year, much less 14 years ago when I left the nightclub. And I'll talk with different friends, and I'm just like, I can be in the moment and be with them as friends, and yet everything that I was in that time period is gone. It's deleted. And I really have a frame of reference now for where Jude would attempt to articulate those types of things, but I feel it in the core of my being, because I no longer carry it as a history. We really are releasing the history, and it's deep in the DNA. It's in the atomic and subatomic levels of the cells, really on a molecular level. And I know some of that you may hear it and think, well, what does that really look like? What does it mean? There may be the scientist part of you that wants to understand it all, and there's different people that, I think can write what that looks like. I mean, if you really are scientific and you wanted to go look for the information on it. But at the end of the day, it's like you don't even need to know. When you just step into your beingness, we don't need to know how it's happening. It's like all the theater that's falling apart, all of these, all the stuff on the news. I mean, all the Holly weird crazies. It's literally imploding on itself, and it's hard to watch. Quite frankly, sometimes I see people or situations and circumstances, and I'm just like, ugh, it makes me sick just to watch the distortion. It's just theater playing out. I mean, it really is true. But once you allow your own theater to release, you'll no longer be in a reaction to anything that you see out there, because we really are grounding ourselves in the new earth. And all we're doing is allowing the divine blueprint to come forth in a really balanced way.
Yeah.
Does any of that make sense?
Yeah.
Jonathan, this is Carter. I've been feeling this like ascension. Hey, it's been weird. I just got back to New Orleans, and all this. I didn't know that Judith was even sick, because I'd been in Texas, so it was like a shock. I actually reached out to her and found out that she had passed. I think you let me know. So, but I've been really feeling this ascension, and it's really messed with me. Like, I feel like I'm living in this different dimensions that, like, they're crossing with me, and like it's almost to the point where sometimes it's problematic driving. Like, it messes with me. So I don't know. Like, I just wanted to shout out there to see if anyone else is having problems with, like, this interdimensional shift. Like, is it, like, messing with them at all?
Yeah. How are y'all feeling?
I can attest to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like really, I've had a lot of really weird things happen to me. Like, I have become, I don't want to say like psychic, but like when someone just said clear, yeah, I've had some moments that have really almost frightened me, where I'm, kind of, I don't even know if it's like breaching, like, I don't know. It's where I'm very, very clear, almost to the point where, I don't know if I'm stepping over boundaries and like reading other people's, getting into other, so I'm having some difficulty, like whether it's my information or their information, like creating boundaries. So, I'm having all kinds of like things come at me, and I'm not used to all of this information. So I didn't know if that was going on in the group, if anyone wanted to share, because I'm having a lot of problems.
Anyone else having that type of experience?
Information coming in, but when you have all that information coming in, it really requires you to be quiet. Wow, which is a tool for me. So just slow that mind down. Yeah. And it comes in so easy. It's so strange how it comes in so easy. So put your hand on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm unaccustomed to trying to figure out what's mine and what's theirs. So I'm just, and it seems like time is accelerating, and everything's being compressed. So everything's moving very fast, and I'm sure everyone else feels that too. And I used to dream very, very, a lot, and this is just very recent, but the last couple of nights I just have been dead asleep. But during the day, it's just like I'm getting tons of information. So it's like when I'm asleep, I'm just on full recharge. So, I've never felt all this potency. So I don't know. I guess you guys are all feeling it too. So I'll just shut up.
Well, we all experience it uniquely, depending on what we've either cleared out or what we're still clearing. And so when you look at ourselves on a multidimensional level, you've got the karmic inheritance and the ancestral inheritance, which goes on for, oh my God, it depends how many lifetimes, of course, we've had. But it's like when you really empty your vessel out, it also, there's no separation from anything ever. And that's the hard part. And the more you go into that emptiness, the more that the external world informs you, because it's like, everything is a frequency. So let's say as our bodies continue to clear, the more frequencies you can be bombarded with. And I think it takes a lot for us to be able to start to manage the way that we ourselves are antennas, and how we can allow the energies to move through and not attack us, in some way. That's one thing, and I've had this conversation with several people about, the Jude with psychic attack. She would always say the dark was coming at her. And some people, certain psychics, certain, different people, different places, have always said that they didn't necessarily feel that we could psychically attack each other, that it was, an internal event. And what Spirit kind of says to me, it's both. So we do have our subtle energy fields, which are unprocessed emotions, energies. We can have angers, resentments, sadness, grief, but also the happy ones. Happy and everything is infectious. They talk about when someone enters a room, you can feel the energy of a room either go down or just lift up and bubble up like crazy, or both. So, you've got a mix of everyone's energies all the time. At the same time, though, okay, let's say someone comes in and there's a lot of anger. It's unprocessed. Can someone project that anger onto each of us individually where we feel it, or dump it onto us? And the answer would be yes and no. If you're in a place where you're receiving the energy, you do make a conscious choice of whether or not to allow that energy to stay with you or not. If you feel like that you're being pulled down by someone else's energy field, we do have to go in and clear ourselves, I think, because energy is a free-flowing, moving thing. And yet, we are not in a place of separation. So if we own the totality of who we are as a field, the stronger our connection is with the divine, with the all that is, our I am presence. It is much more difficult for any entity, whether it's a demon floating around in the astral field, like when you go and have dream states. I mean, sometimes people go into deep dream states, and they can become so contaminated because, when you're out there, you are immediate pure presence. And the reason I say this is because I've helped Jude, with some clients go in, and we've had to do deep soul retrieval. And I was floored at my perception when I was going out in the cosmos. We were out different places, planets, way on out there on behalf of, some of these individual souls to pull them back in here. And some people say, well, how do you get so blown out that way? Well, one of the ways happening now are all these drugs. Crystal meth is one of the most awful things that can come into the human body. Some of these things open your soul up so wide that your soul is eternal. So you go and you travel, spirit all around. But it can really take you and to lead you some really awful places, and your soul can stay stuck there, or part of it, and then you have to go back and retrieve it. And I never would have dreamed about seeing some of the stuff I saw, I was helping Jude with some of these people. And it really gave me a new perspective of how vast we are, just as individual presence within, our cosmic presence, within the collective. And so when you look at the dissolution that we're doing on individual levels, but also in small groups, like in this country, for instance, you've got the United States, and we're a group consciousness within the country. Right now, there's people leading the country, but they aren't necessarily leading it on behalf of the bulk of the Americans that are sitting here in this country. They just aren't. They're still part of the good old boy paradigm. And people ask, well, how can I be changed within a system that won't let you in it? They've got their police state that if you try to talk to them or, suggest something to them they don't like, they're going to shut you down or have you carted off. So it's like we're sitting here kind of imprisoned within a country. We have freedoms, but they're limited freedoms based on the rules that are set up here. And it's really true for each country. Because in truth, no one owns any portion of this big ball of a planet. Not really. Who is it to sit there and say, well, you can buy this little piece of Malibu over here, and you're going to be relegated, to this inner city part of New Orleans that's been falling apart for, hundreds of years.
Away. You're right.
Yeah, it's crazy. Or Africa. There's something about. This is what I think is happening. Pluto has been in Capricorn for 16 years. It's been breaking apart the structures, the boundaries, everything that had us fenced in. And we're starting to see the world in a whole new way. Pluto going into Aquarius is Aquarius is an air sign, but it's still water. It feels like water to me. And I think that's part of the distortion that happened when they went from a 13 constellation to a 12 constellation system. The Earth operates according to the moon and tides. That's our emotional body. And so the Earth is 70% water. We are 70% water. Every time we have full moons, everybody will tell you, when you've got hospitals, police, whatever else, they say that's the most awful time is full moons. Why? Because it heightens our emotional response. It heightens fight or flight. It makes us very reactive to what's going on out there. And so the eclipses take that and even take it exponentially higher. And this particular eclipse, I went and did a little research on this. This eclipse coming up on April the 8th is the longest sustaining eclipse over the United States in recorded history. It's 6 minutes long. The last one was it was on March the 7th of 1970, 54 years ago. And even back then, I found a newspaper thing that was put online saying, what's going to happen when we get the next eclipse of, April of 2024. They were writing about it back then, being such a big deal. And the reason I point out all of this is for this. If those things can affect tides, then the tide goes up and down with the moon. If you're in an eclipse, the vast resetting of us on an emotional level is a big deal. And I was having this conversation with someone that worked at my gym the other night, and she's from Guatemala. And she said she remembered an eclipse in 1993, and she was close to the coast. And she said, Daddy, look at all the water was just slowly receding out. And the eclipse was coming up, and they were noticing it. She said they thought it was about 3 minutes or something. And she said all of a sudden it just slowly came in. It wasn't tsunami kind of thing of anything, but it shows you how powerful these moon movements are with regards to the Earth, but also us as humans. And we don't think about that. We don't contemplate it. And when we're eclipsed, it basically is taking our life force energy and it's shifting us. It's shifting our perception of reality. It's shifting our emotional body, the way we connect to spirit, the way we connect to the planet. It also kind of resets our perspective of how we perceive the world. And so all of this is happening on the United States. It's also a crisscross. I think it's resetting the core of who we are as a nation. And we're going through a Pluto return. I mean, our last Pluto return was when we, made the Constitution, in 1776. And they're not specific dates, but there's energy that takes place over time, especially Pluto. I mean, it's 248-year transits. So we are literally asking ourselves individually and collectively as a country, just our soul group in the United States, how are we going to change the way we are, the way we actuate ourselves in the world around us? And we don't like what's happening in the government. We don't like, the divide and conquer system. The two-party systems basically were put in place to give you a supposed choice. Well, what's the choice? You got a choice between this polarity over here and this polarity over here, and it's like it's just a theater, and but it really our political system does not reflect who we are at our core as humans. And that's what's being reset with Pluto and Aquarius, because we're being made aware we're part of oneness of a whole cosmic, group of people and beings. And I mean, I think you're going to hear so much more about extraterrestrial stuff coming up. I think airplanes are going to change the way that we get around the world. I mean, so many airplanes are just aging beyond, their flight patterns, and the new stuff is just junk. It's kind of like when you go to Walmart, you get, a toaster or whatever. It's just not what it was. Everything falls apart. It's meant to be disposable. And I think that's why we're having so many problems with and breakdowns with things in the material world. And we're also finding the material world is not as important to us anymore. We really are going back to the core of who we are with relationship. And I think that the COVID thing, although there's all sorts of different thoughts about what that was and how it started, but if you look at a bigger, higher function of COVID, it made people stay home. It made them have to, sit with their families and talk to each other and reconnect. So we've started a reconnection, but I think we have to go into a deeper reconnection to really do the next level of our soul work, to really progress humanity to the next level. But we're doing that in our own hometowns. We're doing it. If you're in New Orleans, you're doing it there. If you're doesn't matter where you're at. It's like we have to be the change, and I think we are doing it.
I try to impart that on my adult children too.
Yes.
Just starting to have their own children. And they're in that world of getting the house and the 2 kids and the 2 cars, and just trying to impart knowledge to them.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Well, we're so conditioned to have a certain expectation, and our educational system does it, and it was put that way for a reason. because it perpetuates money, it perpetuates taxes, it perpetuates an economy. But is it really what your heart would create? The deepest aspect of what your heart expression would be. It's like, what would it be? Would you go to work, for 30 or 40 years, and then your body's all worn out by the time you retire, and then you don't even feel like traveling and enjoying life? We're so busy working, unless you're just really enjoying your work, whatever that is. But some people feel like they go to work and they're in a habituated pattern, and we are in so many ways. That's one of the things Jude worked with me to really get rid of, was the habituated pattern. And it's like we go to work to make money and make all this money, but we can't enjoy the things we buy or enjoy the things that are around us, and so we get out of balance. The other thing I'll really share is, and this I feel is really important, the last 14 years for me, when I left the nightclub, Spirit has taken me into was a journey about the advancement of the aging process with humans, and not just this country, but around the world. And if you look at how some other countries, people in those places, some of them really revere their aging population. They take care of their parents, the grandparents. They consider it an honor and their responsibility to take care of their family lineage. In this country, it's been so conditioned. We're just gonna put mom in a home, put grandma here, but stick them on somebody else. I'm gonna hire sitters to take care of whoever. And so, yes, in certain circumstances, we have to do things like that. At the same time, Spirit's also shown me that the very vessel that brings us in, our mother and the Father creates us. It's like they also raise us for the first 18 years. They nurture us. They do all these things, and it's supposed to go in reverse, where if you're aging, you would also attend the vessel that brings you in, and we just don't do it. We've been conditioned away from that, and if you don't have just a heartful caring for the vessel that brings you in, what are your kids going to do to you? And our kids watch us. It's like, they're sponges. If you just put your parents off in homes and whatever, they're going to do the same thing. And some people say, well, I'm not living my life. Well, yeah, you are and you're not. And some people say, well, it shouldn't be our responsibility. Well, what is our responsibility? And, of course, that's where you go into the progression of the soul. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. I'm not here to judge anyone on the way that any family dynamic works out. All Spirit's made me aware of is to bring it to people's attention and ask them to go in their hearts and ask themselves what's the truth. And if you would treat everybody else like you'd want to be treated, you wouldn't dump your parents on a home or dump them in some place just to go, continue doing what you're doing. There's something about the whole progression of the soul through the life pattern, and we really are closing down old timelines. We're closing down bad energies, and I will say not one size fits all for this. Some people are born into families where the parents have been atrocious to them, and children have had to, as they come into adult life, just for pure survival, have had to cut, the parents out of their lives because it was not a situation where they could go and take care of their parents. And so, it is not a one-size-fits-all thing. And the parents, if they miscreated in such an awful way, either through sexual abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. You've got so many different levels and layers this happens on. The main thing is for each of us to individually heal first. If you can go back and assist someone else's soul, whether it's your parents or grandparents, then that's okay. But not everybody wants to be healed either. And it really puts us in some tricky places. But it also leaves us in a place where we have to know from our hearts that you have to take care of yourself first, because you can't assist anyone else if you're not coming from a place of heartfelt strength. And I didn't think all this was going to go there. Anyway, but there's a wisdom in this as we come forth and, just keep going. And
Jonathan?
Does any of that speak to anybody else? Sure. Yes, go ahead.
Jonathan, what I'd like to say on that is, having lived so far on the journey, when you hear you need to take care of yourself first, and
Absolutely.
that is something that, that's something we hear. At the same time, there's also a parallel thing of, what do you mean you can't do this for me? What do you mean you're not going to do that? And so it's like a push-pull on either side of that issue. Exactly, that balance. How much do I need to sacrifice to be there for you, whoever you are, and how much can I be there for me with what level of understanding and clarity I have about what that means.
It really is true. And I mean, that's one thing I learned. I mean, I put my hope, I would say I put my life on hold to take care of my parents. And I did, because it wasn't my life as it was. And yet this is still my life. So my life's not on hold. I made conscious choices to stay home and take care of my mom with Parkinson's and then later cancer. I mean, I've still got my dad at 81 over there. He's self-supportive. He's fine. Still gets around, does his own shopping and everything. But I'm still there and available. I've got another great aunt, though, that's having heart issues up and down, about to be 88. Another great aunt, helping her with her grandkids, totally dysfunctional family. But it's like you have to decide at what point you can do and assist others, but also not forget to do for yourself. And that's one thing that I have not done for myself and gone into my higher expression, like this call. I should have been doing these calls a lot more. I assisted Jude to the point where, when she wanted to do a call, we did a call. But I really should have gone ahead and got more into it and bridged the gap in there. When I was talking to Connie the other day, Connie Stewart, we were just talking about lots of stuff, and she had said that one of the feelings she thought was maybe that I was kind of like idling in life, and I have been idling. It's like we're all sitting here trying to create a new future. We're trying to do it from the core of our heart and the highest potential, and it's like, how do you create something when you're still trying to figure out what the direction is? And it's like, and you want it to be from the core of who you are, because you want it to be an authentic part of you. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. I mean, it has to make you happy. And yet you want to be of service to everyone else, out there in some way. I mean, we all want to leave some sort of legacy for ourselves and kids and what have you. But there's this constant reciprocity going back and forth. And on this topic, so when Jude was asking me, what was holding her back from this and how did she create the disease pattern, one of the first things that Spirit popped to me, and I mentioned this to her, and she didn't poo-poo it. She actually went into it very heartfully and openly. I explained to her, when their mother, was going into dementia. She was in dementia for 13 years. And Jude and her brother Ed, they were living their life. They were doing their things. I mean, they still went and visited Mom and did all their things, whatever. But they basically had a cousin come and take care of their mom and sit with her. And over time, though, that situation diminished, where the home was just atrocious. I mean, the whole feeling was awful. Jude would talk about how her mom had demons and all these kinds of things, and she was constantly trying to clear, and her mom was constantly psychically attacking her. And I told her, I said, there's something about where you and Ed could have made some different decisions. It could have been small things, but it could have kept, your mom's situation from going into such a deterioration. And it's like, and again, it's hard to know. When do you do for you and when do you do for someone else? And but there was something in that, and she agreed, and she went in for like the next couple nights, and she totally went in and merged with her mom's soul again. Just a lot of apology, just a lot of feeling in for just the awful way that her mom's life had deteriorated, and also for the fact that the cousin had to take responsibility for where the kids did not. And that's the other part that's interesting with all of this. When is it our responsibility, and when is it for us to put on somebody else? I mean, is it fair for us to put a demented parent onto someone else, even if you're paying them? And if you've never done that job, you really don't have a clue what it's like. I mean, I have gone into nursing homes for the last, several years, and it's like you see the level of the breakdown of the human expression as it ages. And, of course, not everybody ages the same. I mean, how many people do we know that live to be in their 90s, and they're in pretty darn good health? They still have to do yard work. They drive everywhere. They shop. I mean, I've got some of my family that way. And yet I've got some that have totally, their life force totally depleted itself, and they were dead by 50 or 60. And again, every soul progression is completely different. The question is how do we engage with those different things? And another thing with this too, Jude used to mention, how do you love the unlovable? How do you have such a vast open heart to love something or someone that doesn't even remotely feel the capacity to receive love? And that's, I think, one of the hardest things that we do. And if you watch nurses at hospitals, people that take care of hospice care, people that come and do home health, I mean, those are some amazing souls because they have so much to give, and they're so far out of the way. But you've got all this energy, this vacuous energy on some of these people that are so lost on the last parts of the soul journey. And it's just an amazing thing. I mean, there's so much wisdom that's come out of it, and I'm grateful for Spirit taking me into this because we certainly hope that someone will be there for us when we get older. At the same time, I can say this: I'm exhausted from caregiving. I mean, I'm just it's not for the faint of heart, and of course, each person's different. Soul journey is different based on our genetic and ancestral inheritance. And again, there's no easy way to this. There's no right or wrong way either. I know that's a long explanation for what has come up with all this, but I say all that for this purpose. Spirit's kind of like, yes. So we're closing down old timelines. We're closing down relationship the way we knew it. We're not necessarily supposed to be there because of an obligation. It's like we stay in our hearts, and our hearts know where to take us. And there is a balance, Joyce. It's like, how do you know what's the right amount of care to give with someone, and when is the right care to time for you to take time for you? And it's been a hard lesson for me. So,
well, Jonathan, I would say too that at the beginning of our lives, we're totally programmed by well-meaning parents and teachers and caregivers and society in general. And then once you get to a point, if you can, to try and figure out what's the difference between who am I and what's me and what's the programming.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
so
to release the programming is almost seemingly impossible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's Jude's prime part of the way she was assisting, clients over the years, is how do you go into that programming and release it? Because you also don't want to be in a place of reaction. And so many times our families, especially through, distorted manipulation, emotional, you get all this emotional, oh, I did this for you, you didn't do this for me. There's always this tit for tat thing. And all that's illusion. It's not real.
Yeah.
It's really not. And I didn't mean this to be a whole big thing, but there's something in this eclipse, though, that there's wisdom from knowing that and how to transition into a new creation as we release an old way of being.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of those relationships have to do with the aging people in our lives, but also how we're creating that for ourselves, because we're also having constant death and rebirth on the atomic and subatomic level. You can't have new birth without death. So
right.
if you're constantly staying in a place of pristine awareness, that's one thing I was telling. I don't know if I was telling Connie or maybe it was Light Song. I think it was Light Song. I told her Spirit's been taking me into this place called precipitation. What's that moment? What is the energy that precipitates any creation that we create? It's the nothingness. So if you can go in with a pristine thought and you're really deeply immersed in the field, in the cosmos, I mean, this is what Jude, her whole life was diving into this stuff. It's like, how do you stay in the precipitative moment so that you can create the highest potentiality of any moment from where you're at in that particular time in the time space?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's something we don't contemplate. We're not taught this in schools.
No.
We're just not. It's that now moment. So when you stay in the now moment, you're releasing the history. You know, and you don't want to stay caught. And going back to Jude's disease pattern with the cancer, part of that was genetics. I never knew this until later, but Jude's dad had a facial cancer, and he was a textbook case in New Orleans of what they had to do. I mean, they had to pull the eye out, scrape the socket, put it back. It was this whole big long thing. And I think that she thought that she could energetically transmute what was happening to her. And she did not go do the medical. When she got the first stuff on her nose, she had it cut and done and thought it would heal back, but it ended up coming back. So there's something within the genetic inheritance that we have that has a predisposition for a disease pattern. And how we attend the disease pattern is always our choice. We're still here in the third dimensional world. Can we go to a doctor and have a cancer area cut out and let it heal? Some do. Some people go through and have things done, and they are miraculous cases of how they do clear. And I mean, it's just it's a mystery. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have anything that's...
Jonathan, this is Andrea in Austin. I did have one quick thing. Just when you opened up, you talked about, is anybody like going through any transitions? And at this time, I had talked to my dad on the other side a few months ago, and he said that this job that I'm in, that the company is going to dissolve at some point, but I'll know when. I'll see the signs, and I've started seeing the signs within the last month and a half. So it's like I know it's coming, but I'm trying to just like let it all fall into place. I'm applying for other positions, but it's that just let go and let God, and just let everything fall into place. But God knows I'm a planner, so it's like if you could just give me an idea of what direction this is going, that would be great. But it's just kind of releasing and just allowing things to just happen is what I'm working on right now.
It's
as I
true.
hear you say that about that describes being in the present moment. I just heard you describe it. It's cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what'll happen? Our mind will get caught with something, and it wants to know something. It wants to, go back and have some sort of agenda, because we're programmed to have an agenda. We're programmed to have wants and needs. Sure, we have personal wants and needs, and there's no reason we can't have some things we want. At the same time, if you're really connected to your divinity, you'll attract the highest potentiality of something that would be so much greater than you could have even imagined. And these eclipses, all eclipses are that. I mean, it happened the same way for me back in 2010. My mom had just been diagnosed with Parkinson's. She had this whole long journey of her husband had died from neuropathy. Nobody could figure out what was going on. She was taking care of her father with Alzheimer's. She was running a party supply store, all of that all by herself. It almost killed her. And I think that's where the Parkinson's was created. I didn't realize how bad it was. And my sister had just been killed in 2002 at the jet ski accident. So she was literally at the end of her rope. I had no clue. At the same time, the owner of my business decided to sell. And I didn't expect that to happen. If it hadn't happened exactly the way it happened, I would not have left that job to go take care of my mom and start this next part of the journey. I didn't fight it. You go with the flow and allow. And so there's something about that, just being in the moment and doing. Is anybody else in a really deep, profound shift of change, like with either job or family or anything?
Not here.
Yeah, I'm in the same position with my parents. They're 80. This is Carter. They're 82, and I'm like renovating part of the house. We're going to be putting it up for sale. They're going to be probably looking at a independent living, and I'm back in New Orleans, back from Texas, and yeah, I'm 52 looking for a job. So it's all new. Yeah, everything's all new. I did not expect to be back in New Orleans.
Yeah. So, quick question for you: do you have an idea of what you think your new job will be, or are you just kind of like in the flow and you're?
I am in the flow. I mean, I've always been kind of in entrepreneur, so I'm just gonna see where life takes me, and that's all I can ask for guidance.
Well, I really feel like that's a great place to be, because it's like as things align and shift, especially during this eclipse window, it's like, imagine that the eclipse is an elevator that's going to take you sideways. Stephanie Azar used to call them sideways elevators. In a way, it's true. And some people are like, what's a sideways elevator? It's almost like it's almost like a wormhole. And it takes you all the way over here, and you would have never gotten there on your own. But when you allow, the ocean to just kind of float and take you, it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize I was going to be here. I think that's where we're at.
Well, that's a good thing.
It really is. It's oceanic presence, and I mean that's one of the things Jude always taught from, is like when you go and sit in that, it's like then you really allow Spirit to bring you to the highest potentiality of your next creation. Mm-hmm. And I really think we're all in very amazing times coming from all this. But anybody have anything else they could think of that, or anything with question that is activating anything else in you?
Well, all kinds of strange things are happening. I just can't wait to see what else happens after the lunar eclipse. So I mean, I hope you do continue to keep doing Judith's work and continue to do these telephone calls, because I don't know. I mean, are you still in New Orleans, or are you still having functions or get-togethers, or I don't know what's really going on, because I just returned. So
Sure. No, absolutely. No, I've been in Kentucky now for the last few years. I was going back and forth, but I mean, with this kind of stuff on the phone, I mean, you can do everything virtually anyway. And all of Jude's, stuff that she was doing had been on the phone. And of course, she was doing those moon calls, every 2 weeks. And that's one thing that I thought, maybe I'm going to go back to the moon calls, because the moon calls are, that timing was very good timing, because the moons are the changing of our emotional body. And it's when we can either go into really deep places or assist us in moving things out. And actually, this is perfect timing. I thought maybe I'd go ahead and try to lead us into a really deep meditation for whatever time period. It could be 5 minutes, it can be 30, depending on what everybody's into. And I'll just kind of stick with it. I can't guarantee I'll have us going into the depth that Jude always did, where we're falling asleep and in like a a stupor, just like, oh my God, what happened to me? At the same time, I do know that Jude's spirit is eternal. I mean, she's back in all that. And I know her soul is working with my soul and guiding. Mother, Father, God's guiding with all of this. I mean, the entire company of heaven's guiding this because it got created. And so, so on that note, let's go in and just work and create an intention to, let's just get still, let's get quiet. Matter of fact, what I will mute now so that it'll be nice and quiet for us.
Yes. Yes.
Is that the truth? Are you sure? Phone call. Okay. Dark side. Either the chest may set chocolate. Then someday we'll see. In America. Awesome. Jeez.